My beloved child, listen carefully, don't skip this message, because if you found these words at this exact moment, let yourself pause for just a little while. Something inside the person you love has been changing, and the heart that once felt heavy may finally be learning how to feel hope again. For so long, your soulmate may have carried emotions they couldn't explain, memories they couldn't release, and questions they didn't know how to answer. But now, in this story, something is different. Their heart is beginning to feel lighter. Their smile is returning. Their hope is returning. And somehow, the memory of you has become connected to that feeling. There are only 2 minutes left in this message, so don't rush away. Take a breath. Put everything else aside for a moment. Imagine that somewhere, far away from you, the person you care about is sitting alone with their thoughts. Maybe they have had a difficult day. Maybe they have been pretending everything is fine. Maybe they have smiled around other people while carrying something heavy inside. But then, unexpectedly, something reminds them of you. A song. A place. A sentence. A photograph. A simple memory. And suddenly, their expression changes. They smile. Not because everything in their life is perfect. Not because every problem has disappeared. But because for one brief moment, they remember something beautiful. They remember you. My beloved child, perhaps you never realized how much certain moments with you stayed inside their heart. You may have forgotten the conversation that meant everything to them. You may have forgotten the day you encouraged them. You may have forgotten the little joke that made them laugh when they desperately needed it. But people don't always remember the biggest moments. Sometimes they remember the smallest ones. The moment someone looked at them and truly listened. The moment someone believed in them. The moment someone made them feel safe enough to be themselves. Perhaps you became one of those memories. And that's why their heart feels different now. There was a time when your soulmate may have tried to suppress their feelings. They may have told themselves that thinking about you was pointless. They may have tried to move forward. They may have convinced themselves that distance was easier. Maybe they even acted as though they didn't care. But pretending is exhausting. You can distract the mind for a while, but eventually the heart speaks again. Maybe they discovered that every time they tried to forget you, another memory returned. Every time they tried to convince themselves they were over it, something reminded them. Every time they tried to shut the door emotionally, they found themselves standing in front of it again. And perhaps they finally stopped fighting. Not necessarily because they know exactly what they want, but because they finally accepted that you mattered. That realization can be powerful. Sometimes healing begins when someone stops denying what they feel. Maybe your soulmate has recently reached that point. They are no longer asking, "Why do I still think about this person?" They're asking, "What am I going to do with these feelings?" That's a completely different question. Because feelings can be ignored. But once someone accepts them, they have to decide how to respond. Maybe that's why their heart seems happier again. Because they aren't fighting themselves anymore. They aren't pretending. They aren't forcing themselves to forget. They're allowing themselves to remember the good without becoming trapped in the past. And perhaps that's what healing looks like. Not forgetting someone. Not erasing the memories. But remembering without pain. Remembering without anger. Remembering with gratitude. Maybe your soulmate can finally think about you and smile instead of feeling regret. Maybe they can remember what happened without blaming themselves. Maybe they can look at your old conversations and feel warmth instead of sadness. And perhaps they are beginning to understand something important. The connection mattered, even if everything didn't happen perfectly. Maybe they made mistakes. Maybe you made mistakes. Maybe circumstances created distance. Maybe timing was wrong. Maybe fear got involved. Maybe neither of you knew how to communicate what you truly felt. But none of that erases the impact you had on each other. Sometimes people enter our lives and leave behind lessons that stay long after the circumstances change. Sometimes they teach us what we deserve. Sometimes they teach us what we should never accept again. Sometimes they teach us how deeply we are capable of feeling. And sometimes, they teach us that love can return after we thought our hearts were finished. Perhaps your soulmate is learning that now. Maybe their heart was tired. Maybe they stopped believing in love. Maybe they stopped expecting anything good. Then something about you reminded them that tenderness still exists. You may have shown them kindness without expecting anything in return. You may have listened when they needed someone. You may have supported them during a difficult season. And even if they never thanked you properly, they may have carried that memory. Perhaps they are finally realizing how much it meant. They may think, I didn't appreciate it enough. I should have said more. I should have been honest. I should have told them what they meant to me. Those thoughts can be painful. But they can also become the beginning of change. Because regret becomes useful when it teaches someone how to behave differently in the future. Maybe your soulmate is learning not to take people for granted. Maybe they are learning to communicate before silence creates distance. Maybe they are learning that vulnerability isn't weakness. Maybe they are learning that love cannot survive forever on assumptions. And perhaps your connection has helped them grow. But listen carefully to this part. You are not responsible for repairing their heart. You don't have to rescue them. You don't have to chase them. You don't have to prove your love. If their heart is healing, let them do the work. If they care about you, let their actions show it. A healthy connection isn't built by one person carrying everything. It's built when both people choose honesty. Maybe your soulmate is reaching that understanding now. They may have realized that if they ever return to your life, they cannot return with the same behavior. They cannot disappear whenever things become difficult. They cannot expect you to understand everything without communication. They cannot ask you to wait forever. They have to bring clarity. They have to bring consistency. They have to bring respect. And perhaps that is why their heart is happy again. Not because they have everything figured out, but because they finally believe change is possible. Maybe they've started waking up with a different mindset. They are thinking about their future. They are setting goals. They are taking better care of themselves. They are becoming more confident. And somewhere inside all of that growth is the memory of you. Maybe you were part of the reason they realized they wanted more from life. Maybe seeing your strength made them question their own choices. Maybe knowing you inspired them to become a better version of themselves. That doesn't mean you created their transformation. They did that. But you may have been the spark that helped them believe transformation was possible. And perhaps that's why they associate you with hope. Not pressure. Not fear. Hope. When they think about you, they may think, maybe life can still surprise me. Maybe I can love again. Maybe I can trust again. Maybe I don't have to remain the person I was. That's beautiful. Because sometimes the greatest impact you have on another person isn't making them stay. It's making them believe they can become better. Maybe your soulmate has been looking back at their choices. They remember moments when they could have spoken but remained silent. They remember opportunities they didn't take. They remember times they pushed you away. And perhaps they finally understand why. Fear. Pride. Confusion. Insecurity. Maybe they were afraid you would reject them. Maybe they believed they weren't good enough. Maybe they thought you would eventually find someone better. And instead of risking rejection, they chose distance. But distance didn't remove the feelings. It only hid them. Now they are asking themselves, what if I had been brave? What if I had told the truth? What if I had trusted them? These questions can keep someone awake. But perhaps they don't want to live in what if forever. Maybe they want to know what could happen if they finally become honest. That doesn't guarantee a reunion. It doesn't mean destiny is forcing two people together. It means a person is becoming more willing to communicate. And that is where real possibilities begin. Maybe your soulmate will eventually reach out. Maybe they'll send a simple message. Nothing dramatic. Nothing mysterious. Just, hey, I've been thinking about you. And you may stare at those words for a long time. Because you know how much history sits behind them. You may wonder, what do they want? Why now? Are they serious? And you have every right to take your time. You don't have to respond immediately. You don't have to reopen the door just because someone knocks. But if you choose to respond, let it be from clarity, not desperation. Ask questions. Listen. Observe. Let their actions tell you what their words mean. Maybe they say, I miss you. That's meaningful. But then ask, what are you willing to do differently? Because missing someone is a feeling. Building a relationship is a decision. And perhaps your soulmate is finally learning that difference. Maybe they aren't simply missing you. Maybe they're preparing themselves to show up differently. Maybe they want to apologize. Maybe they want to explain. Maybe they want to tell you what was happening inside them. Maybe they want to hear your side. And perhaps the most beautiful thing is that they are no longer trying to control the outcome. They just want to be honest. That is growth. They may finally say, I don't know what happens after this conversation. I just know I don't want to keep pretending I don't care. Those words could change everything. Because sometimes the heart doesn't need a guarantee. It needs permission to tell the truth. Maybe your soulmate has finally given themselves that permission. And perhaps that's why their heart is happier again. They are no longer carrying the burden of silence. They are no longer fighting their own emotions. They are no longer pretending that nothing mattered. They are allowing themselves to hope. And perhaps you can do the same. You don't have to know exactly what your future looks like. You don't have to know whether this person will return. You don't have to decode every coincidence. You don't have to wait for a sign every hour. Live your life. Keep growing. Keep building. Keep loving yourself. If someone wants to meet you there, let them. But don't stop walking simply because you're hoping they'll catch up. That is important. Because your heart deserves a life that exists beyond one person. Your happiness deserves its own foundation. Your peace deserves protection. And if your soulmate truly belongs in your future, they should add to that peace, not become the price you pay for it. Perhaps that is the new lesson your soulmate is learning. They don't want to be someone who takes happiness from you. They want to become someone who contributes to it. They want to make you smile. They want to support your dreams. They want to celebrate your victories. They want to be present during your difficult days. They want to communicate instead of disappearing. They want to build instead of guessing. And perhaps that is why their heart is changing. They are beginning to understand what love actually requires. Not just emotion. Responsibility. Not just chemistry. Consistency. Not just longing. Action. Maybe one day, they will tell you. I thought loving you meant being afraid of losing you. But now I understand that loving you means being brave enough to show up. That is the transformation. Fear becomes courage. Silence becomes communication. Regret becomes accountability. Distance becomes clarity. And perhaps your soulmate is somewhere in the middle of that transformation right now. Maybe they're not ready yet. That's okay. People grow at different speeds. Don't force their process. Don't make their healing your responsibility. Give people room to become who they are choosing to become. And while they do, continue becoming who you are choosing to become. Maybe the two paths eventually meet again. Maybe they don't. But either way, your growth matters. Your healing matters. Your happiness matters. And perhaps that is the deeper spiritual message hidden inside this story. Sometimes God doesn't immediately give you the person you want. Sometimes the lesson is learning how to love without losing yourself. Sometimes the blessing is the healing that happens before the reunion. Sometimes the answer isn't wait. Sometimes the answer is grow. And sometimes two people have to become healthier individually before they can create something healthy together. Maybe your soulmate is learning that. Maybe you are learning it too. And perhaps that is why the number 2 feels symbolic in this story. 2 people. 2 journeys. 2 hearts. 2 choices. Not one person chasing another. Not one person carrying the entire relationship. 2 people choosing whether they can walk forward together. That is the difference between fantasy and healthy love. Maybe your soulmate's heart is happy again because they finally understand that love doesn't have to be perfect to be meaningful. They can appreciate what you gave them without demanding that you return. They can be grateful for the memories without becoming trapped in them. They can hope for the future without forcing it. And perhaps they are finally at peace with that. Maybe they smile when they remember you. Maybe they silently wish you well. Maybe they wonder what your life looks like now. Maybe they hope you're happy. Maybe they hope you're safe. And maybe one day, they will have the courage to tell you. But until then, don't punish yourself with unanswered questions. Don't let silence become a story you write without evidence. Don't assume their distance means they don't care. And don't assume their feelings mean they are ready. Both can be true. Someone can care deeply and still not be ready for a healthy relationship. That's why actions matter. Let reality guide you. Let communication guide you. Let consistency guide you. And if they come back, don't only listen to what they say. Watch what they do. Do they respect your boundaries? Do they communicate consistently? Do they take responsibility? Do they make room for your needs? Do they support your growth? Do they show up when things aren't easy? Those are the signs that matter. Maybe your soulmate is ready to become that person. Maybe their heart feels lighter because they finally understand what they lost. Maybe they are grateful for what you taught them. Maybe they are preparing to say the words they couldn't say before. And perhaps when that moment comes, you won't need a dramatic confession. Maybe they'll simply look at you and say, "You made me believe in happiness again." You may not know what to say. Maybe you'll smile. Maybe you'll cry. Maybe you'll remember every moment that brought you to that conversation. But perhaps you'll also realize something. You didn't create their happiness. You inspired something they discovered within themselves. And they didn't create yours. You discovered that within yourself too. That's what makes a healthy connection beautiful. Two people bringing their own light. Not one person becoming the entire sun for the other. So, my beloved child, if this message speaks to your heart, let it remind you of hope, not certainty. Hope that people can grow. Hope that hearts can heal. Hope that honest conversations can change relationships. Hope that love can become healthier with time. But also have faith in yourself. Have faith that you can handle whatever comes next. If your soulmate returns, you can listen. If they apologize, you can decide whether forgiveness is appropriate. If they ask for another chance, you can decide whether their actions deserve it. And if they never return, you can still build a beautiful life. Your story does not end because someone walks away. Your story continues. Maybe the next chapter is with them. Maybe it's somewhere unexpected. But the next chapter belongs to you. And that is why you should not spend these final moments worrying about whether your soulmate is thinking about you. Instead, ask yourself, am I thinking about myself? Am I giving myself the same love I keep hoping someone else will give me? Am I building a life that makes me proud? Because when you become at peace with yourself, love becomes a choice instead of a rescue. And perhaps that is exactly what your soulmate is learning. They don't need someone to save them. They need to become someone capable of loving well. Maybe they are happier again because they finally understand that. Maybe they are smiling because they remember the person who inspired them to change. Maybe they are grateful because your presence awakened something beautiful. And perhaps that is enough for today. You don't need to force the ending. You don't need to rush the next chapter. Let life unfold through real choices. Let people reveal themselves. Let love prove itself. Let time expose what is genuine. And let your heart remain open without becoming unprotected. The countdown may say 2 minutes. But your life isn't running out of time. You are not late. Your love story is not on a deadline. You don't have to panic because a certain moment passed. You don't have to chase someone because you're afraid of missing your chance. What belongs in your life will require participation, not panic. So breathe. Slow down. Listen to your heart. And remember, your soulmate's healing is their responsibility. Your healing is yours. Their happiness is theirs. Your happiness is yours. And if the two of you eventually share those things, let it be because both of you are choosing each other freely. Maybe your soulmate's heart is happy again. Maybe they're finally smiling. Maybe they're finally hopeful. Maybe they're finally ready to admit what they feel. But the most important heart in this story is yours. Protect it. Respect it. Heal it. And never make it beg for what should be freely given. If someone loves you, let them show it. If someone misses you, let them communicate it. If someone wants a future with you, let them build toward it. And if they are becoming happier because of knowing you, be grateful for the beautiful impact you had. But never forget that you deserve someone who makes your heart happier too. Perhaps one day you'll sit beside your soulmate and talk about everything. You'll laugh about how afraid you both were. You'll remember the silence. You'll remember the missed opportunities. You'll remember the moments when neither of you knew what to say. And maybe you'll realize that the real miracle wasn't that one person magically returned. The miracle was that two people learned how to communicate. Two people learned how to heal. Two people learned how to choose love without abandoning themselves. And if that day comes, it won't be because a countdown forced it. It will be because both of you chose it. So let this message end with peace. Your soulmate's heart may be finding happiness again. But your heart deserves happiness right now. Not tomorrow. Not after someone returns. Not after someone chooses you. Right now. You deserve to wake up and feel grateful for your own life. You deserve to laugh without waiting for a text. You deserve to dream without needing anyone's permission. You deserve to build something beautiful. And if someone joins you on that journey, let them come with honesty. Let them come with courage. Let them come with consistency. Let them come ready to love you in reality, not just in their imagination. Maybe your soulmate is getting there. Maybe their heart is lighter. Maybe they finally understand. And perhaps when they think of you, they don't feel sadness anymore. They feel gratitude. They smile. They breathe. and they quietly say, "I hope they're happy." That may be the beginning of something beautiful. Because when love becomes gratitude instead of fear, it becomes free. And when two people are free to choose each other, something real can finally grow. So don't skip your own life while waiting for theirs to change. Keep moving. Keep healing. Keep believing. Keep becoming. And if your paths cross again, meet them as the stronger version of yourself, not the person who was waiting desperately for an answer, but the person who learned to create peace even without one. Maybe that is the message your heart needed. Maybe your soulmate's heart is happy again. Maybe they're remembering you with warmth. Maybe they're finding hope because of what you shared. But now, let that hope become yours too. Not hope that someone will rescue you. Hope that your life can become beautiful regardless of who stays. And perhaps, when you least expect it, someone will come into your life and say, "I don't want to make you wonder anymore. I want to be honest. I want to show you. I want to build something real." If that person is your soulmate, let their actions speak. And if they aren't, trust that someone else can. Either way, you win when you choose yourself. So take one final breath. Release the fear. Release the pressure. Release the need to know exactly what happens next. Your story is still unfolding. Your heart is still healing. Your future is still open. And perhaps the most beautiful part is this. You don't need 2 minutes to change your entire love story. You only need one moment of clarity to change the way you love yourself. Maybe that moment is now. Maybe your soulmate's heart is happy again. But from this moment forward, make sure yours is too. Because the love you are waiting for should never require you to abandon the person you were always meant to become. And that person is you.